bad news, because we do know that Kenyans have to brace themselves for a higher cost of living as the prices of liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, increased to the highest levels ever on Monday. Now, refilling a 6 kg gas cylinder will now cost 1,500, and a 13 kg gas cylinder 3,340, from about 1,400 and 2,950 respectively in not last year, not 6 months ago, just last month, which is what, 2 weeks ago. Now, the current prices represent a 60% increase compared with March 2021, which will see Kenyans in urban areas in the country dig deeper into their pockets to present food on the table. Fantastic. I mean, Justin, from all points, you can't say it's just food. It is energy. It is food. It is the cost of inputs. Runaway inflation, black and white terms. Should we be seeing swift response from the government just to contain some of these prices that we're talking about here this morning?
It's very difficult, Simba,
yes.
when you look at, as you've put it, all these problems, they're quite numerous and they're all coming in at once. And it's not unique to Kenya, it's something across the whole globe. And for people to call for intervention, remember, if there's going to be an intervention, say in the form of subsidies, price controls, those still have to be funded. And even in terms of actions, yes, we have seen something like the agriculture CS saying that they will establish, I think, 19-20 billion fund to cushion tea farmers against fluctuating tea prices. They are pushing for a subsidy for fertilizers,
yes,
which is of course a very big risk towards food inflation. Now, when you think about it, even if they were to convince the Treasury or government planners to add maybe an extra 5 billion or so towards fertilizer price controls, then this is likely to come in again past June, past July. It's not something that will be immediate. So for sure, even if the government were to intervene today, the process of intervention will kickstart maybe in the next financial year.
Yes.
So the government is at a point whereby for them to intervene or do anything, what I think maybe they shouldn't be doing right now is increasing taxes, but instead maybe trying to see ways in which they can encourage cheaper imports, get into the sort of international agreements that Gabriel was alluding to. But other than that, the government can't do much in terms of food inflation, because most of the things that we're seeing rise in input costs, we don't control a lot of those input costs. It's same for LPG that Melody talked about.
Pretty much. Melody, you hear what Justin is saying, that, I mean, if there's there's little they can do now in the short term. Does that mean that we even have to relook at our budget document, which is just due in a couple of months from now, just so that we can have this kind of shocks going into the next financial year? Is that what we're looking at? And Melody, when you look at it being an electioneering year, I mean, this document is going to come at a time when the country will be in election mood. Do you expect that this inflation would be worse than it is right now?
Yes, as Justin had said, the government will have to look at as you said, the budget process. They'll have to look at where they're going to reallocate the money, and this might mean that now the developmental areas are going to have some cuts. So I believe if the government wants to sort this issue out, it's going to unfortunately have to be in the next cycle. And because it's an election year, it has to be very cognizant of the issues that are happening in the that are happening in the economy. So I believe they're going to put this issue of food inflation first, because they know that now the people are looking at them to see what are they doing to make life better for them. So as I said, like the fund is being set up to stabilize the tea prices, and as well as for the fertilizer. So we're going to see how that's going to help the common Mwananchi as the year passes by.
Pretty much. Gabriel, lastly then, as we come to the end of our conversation this morning, I mean, it's 2022. We're still talking about food. In fact, we're talking about runaway food inflation. We're still at above 10%. is that a failure for the government to deliver on a particular pillar that they promised on food security in the country? Because you like to think that indeed right now we'll be hitting a linear scale when it comes to this particular inflation in the country. Because the only thing that keeps on pushing inflation high every particular month and year, it is that particular area, food inflation.
I'd say it's a big contributor.
Yes.
They're failure to, of course, then properly invest, in food projects like Galana. There is a failure there, and I think, we're talking about food inflation, but we still have starvation in this country, Simba. So, food inflation aside, the failure goes all the way to people actually and animals starving even today as we speak here. So the failure is there and it's evident.
Yes. Fantastic.
So if they can't help people who are starving, they're not going to help us about inflation. We can close it at that.
Pretty much. That's it. I can't let you go, Justine, out of this conversation this morning. I gotta ask you though, just 45 seconds reaction. The impending risk-based lending in the country. Do you think that's a good thing, or there are two sides to that? 45 seconds, if you may, Justin.
Wow, Simba, just totally change the topic. But yeah, it's a good thing.
Yes.
Especially in the commercial services sector.
Yes.
Intervention is not always the best. It's best for the market to operate freely.
Yes.
So what we may see is, of course, price of lending costs increase. But at the end of the day, what will happen is that there will be more loans being afforded to people because the people maybe couldn't qualify under the previous
yes.
The previous interest rate environment. So generally, it's a good thing, although loan costs will definitely increase.
Pretty much. Melody, I also gotta ask you this one. I mean, Equity is among those banks that are championing for the reintroduction of transfer charges from mobile wallets to, from bank wallets to mobile wallets. It's something that majority of the economy did forget. Do you think that that's something that CBK needs to look into?
I believe that they're just looking for ways to boost the non-funded income.
Yes.
Of course, I'm sure that people are not very happy about it. As you said, the economy, yes, it's still recovering, but it's still a cost. So unfortunately, because it's a free market, I believe people can set the charges that they want, unless now the CBK comes in and controls it. But more or less, they're looking for ways to boost their non-funded income.
Pretty much. That's exactly how we come to the end of our show this morning. I mean, whether you like it or not, those news of the impending risk-based lending in the country and the push from Equity to reintroduce those transfer charges between your mobile, between your bank wallet and your mobile wallet, has exactly made the market react to that. I mean, if you look at the top gainers yesterday, top gainers, you'll find that majority of those stocks were from the banking quarters. You'll find KCB, you'll find Andem Holdings there as well. You'll find NCBA there as well. So you can talk about really investors across the market saying that things might be looking up, especially on that non-funded income segment for the banking industry in the country. We'll be looking at the market and reporting as of when we have it. For now, I would like to say thank you very much to you, Justine, Melody, and Gabriel, for taking time to speak to us here this morning on Metropole Television. That's the end of it. Good morning.